don't need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
Hello, I am so excited to be sneaking in an episode with you before I head out to the beach because summer is winding down. I'm so sad. I have almost exactly 1 month until the birth of my baby girl, and I'm trying to enjoy as much freedom, liberation, personal time as I can before I go back to newborn time, where you basically have a leash attached to you from your baby, and you have to be within a certain radius at all times for food, for love, for all that fun stuff. So I kind of forgot how to do it. But I'm sure it's like riding a bike that I haven't touched in over 10 years. I'll just hop right back on. Anyway, I hope you guys are well. I hope you are getting to the beach this summer. I hope you're having a great time. My family and I went to Cape Cod for the very first time last week. And we were very excited because, of course, on the East Coast, that's all you hear about is Cape Cod, Cape Cod, Cape Cod. So we stayed at this resort, and I will tell you what, 2 places disappoint me so much when it comes to interior design. The first one is all doctors' offices. Like, what are they thinking? Even the ones that have like the nice, sparkly, newly renovated lobbies oftentimes are such letdowns in the actual patient rooms with really bad art, if there is even art, it's just always very disappointing. My doctor that I go to now twice a week because I'm a geriatric pregnancy. I think I'm beyond geriatric. I'm not sure what the next step is, but I'm that next step, the super, super old pregnancy. So I go a lot. And he has all these like really antique paintings, and I've got nothing wrong with that, right? But even some antique type furniture. However, it's a very modern facility, and the things just do not go well together. And it's clear that he bought them at like an auction or a very high-end garage sale, but they feel garage sale. And anyway, it may just not be the thing you want to put out. I mean, there's like pictures of birds, and I don't know. I just think more thought could be put into when you're designing a commercial space, thinking about the patient or the client rather than the person who designs the space and their preferences, or the doctor, right? His office should look exactly how he wants it to look. But the treatment rooms are really meant to appeal to the patient or the client. And when they don't, it feels a little out of touch. When it's so different than the other spaces, it feels a little like an afterthought. These are just my thoughts. But the other place that was very disappointing was this resort. Like, where are you hanging your art and why? And then you never realize how important a mattress is until you sleep on a bad one. And these mattresses, it was like there was a sinkhole in the middle, like somebody had been jumping on it right in the middle and broken all the springs. My husband and I wound up sleeping backwards with our head at the feet part and our feet at the headboard part, because otherwise we just sink right into the middle. And if you've ever been 8.5 months pregnant, well, you know that sleep is just hard to come by. Comfortability while you're trying to sleep is hard to come by. And let alone when you're in a horrible bed that has all these issues. So even though you would think the patient experience at a doctor's office, the vacation experience at a resort would not be defined by decor, oftentimes it is. And these places that are making a lot of money, doctor's offices and resorts, should really be thinking more about that when they are putting together their schematic, because the art in the room at the resort was not bad. It was just placed so arbitrarily, and the tile was picked so arbitrarily. Now, I am the queen of finding cheap tile. So I bet I could find tile that was even more affordable than what they had invested. And yet they put things together in such a bad way. And not only do they do it in one room, but they replicate it over hundreds of rooms. Oh my goodness. Why don't people call us? I digress. Anyway, let's dig into the mailbag because we have some amazing questions that have come in. And the first is from a very good client of mine, Illana. So Illana's writing from White Plains and she just bought a house and she's writing, "Hi, Betsy. We miss having you design our house. So we've been listening to your podcast for our fill of Betsy advice until you are back to seeing clients. Here's our question. When you paint the ceiling the same color as the walls in the room, when do you paint the ceiling the same colors as the wall in the room, and when do you paint it white? Our new house has 2 of the bedrooms on the 3rd floor, attic type space with 6.5-foot ceilings, and we obviously want to make the rooms look as open and large as possible given this restriction. Our family room off of the kitchen, on the other hand, has very high ceilings. We've heard painting the entire ceiling the same color as the walls in low ceiling rooms makes the room look bigger. But then I also heard you paint high ceilings the same as the walls to make it more cohesive. Which is it? Pictures of both our 3rd floor bedrooms and our family room are attached. Thanks." Well, guys, so just a little background on Illana. When I was in Dobbs Ferry, they also lived in Dobbs Ferry, and they have the most adorable family, Illana and her husband, and their family would go on walks together, and they have a very large brood with varying age ranges, and I had a shop right on Main Street. And I always looked so forward to them going on their family walks because they would step up and wave in the window, and it was such a nice moment. And I loved designing their previous space, and so now for their new house, it's very exciting. But I'm already phasing out of clients because I'm on maternity leave. Well, I'm not on maternity leave. Give me 1 more month. But I'm not currently taking clients because if they want more work, if they have follow-up questions, I would not be available. So they need to work with somebody who will be available for them because hopefully I'll take 3 months, but I'm even more optimistic that I'll be able to take 6 months. Let's see how it all plays out. I have an amazing new office manager. Our team is great, so I'm quite optimistic. Let's get to your questions, shall we, Illana? Okay, so first of all, if you want to see her pictures, you'll want to head over to our YouTube channel, which is Affordable Interior Design on YouTube. And I'm checking out these pictures. First of all, the new place looks adorable, filled with character and personality. Second of all, here's the thing. So you have peaked kind of sides of the room that then go up to a ceiling. In my opinion, unless it's like a very tight entryway or a very small powder room, I would not paint the ceilings the same as the walls. Or if you had wallpaper, I would not wallpaper the ceilings the same as the walls unless it's a very small space. In this case, the ceilings are low at 6.5 feet. And typically when I do have those sloped sides in a room, I will paint the sloped sides if there is a clean line of demarcation before it goes straight. So for instance, my old house in Westchester had this same exact situation. And there was a clear demarcation, even with like a picture rail, of where the slope ended and the ceiling began. And the ceiling turned out to be a very narrow rectangular strip. But the previous owners had not painted the slopes, and it actually made the room look much smaller. What I cannot discern from these particular pictures is if there is a clear demarcation between where the slope ends and the ceiling begins so that the paint would be a very clean application. Even if there's not a clear demarcation here, it also appears that there's not a clear demarcation of where the slope begins on the wall below. So you're going to have to make something up. That's the bottom line. Now, here you have such a narrow rectangle of potential ceiling. I mean, maybe it's 4.5 to 5 feet wide. Maybe this is a case where I might do the entire room in the color without the demarcation. Now, of course, I'm not referring to the trim or the doors, which you are going to keep that white color, right? Most trim, people paint a version of white or off-white. But yeah, in this room with the small, low ceilings and the non-demarcated slope, maybe I would do it all one color, but it's not typically something I ever go for. And I don't believe any of those tricks. Like people would say, if you paint a small room a dark color, it'll feel small. If you paint a big room a light color, it'll feel bigger. I mean, all of those are really contingent on other variables as well. So I don't think there's one one rule in terms of those things that you could follow every time to get the desired effect. Now let's look at your large family room. This is very exciting. This place looks great, by the way. So here, the two slopes meet in a peak. There is no rectangular plateau at the top. They meet in a rather pointed triangle. In here, I'm just thinking. You know, we're going to have a lot of white in here because this family room opens up into the kitchen with the white trim, etc. Now, we definitely want the ceiling of the kitchen to be white. Definitely. But as the kitchen opens up into the family room, it peaks and has that triangular shape that I was referring to earlier. If this were my house, I would keep the entire rectangular shape, the two peaks, which are very clearly demarcated in this room, the white color of the ceiling in the kitchen, because there's recessed lights in the ceiling in the kitchen and there's also recessed lights in these peaks. And so you're kind of treating the same type of ceiling the same type of way. And then I would paint the actual walls, the color, the room color that you're going for. So there we go. I think I answered all your questions, Illana. Of course, if more come up, feel free to ask me because this is the only way you can get my design advice until January or maybe even March. Wouldn't it be delicious to take 6 months? Oh, with my other babies, I hardly got 1 or 2 months. So I don't know. It would just be so delicious, so decadent. All right, let me move to my next question in the mailbag. The next question comes all the way from Rockwall, Texas. Jennifer's writing in. She writes, "Hi, I love listening to your podcast. You're so talented in getting to the heart of the issues in a room and even addressing things that probably weren't on the writer's radar. I am needing help with my 11-year-old daughter's bedroom. I've always struggled with the layout in this small space. The window is large and off-center. How can I use curtains to balance this window? The doorway opens up into one of my best wall space and closet doors, which take up nearly the entire wall. By the way, the closet runs through both door spaces. I don't really know why they made 2 separate doors. It makes it difficult to use the space behind that tiny bit of wall. I'd really like to have the doorway redone as bifold doors and put in a good closet system so that she wouldn't even need a dresser. It's not in the budget right now, so maybe you can weigh in on this. The room is 1010 by 1010. I recently bought a 6-cube storage piece to double as a nightstand. However, I do still have her old nightstand. I'd like to add a desk or other workspace to her room, hence the need for moving the dresser to the closet. Will vertical furnishings or decor help this room not seem so wall-to-wall furniture? Or should any desk be a color instead of white to help break this up? She's not wanting to make any changes to the space, so I'm compromising by reusing her bird pictures and by turning the hanging bird cage into a mobile with origami cranes. I'm going to put rattan baskets in the bottom 3 cubes as a nod to birds' nests and possibly add a rattan mirror. The bird art and a feather print fabric, colors are mint, aqua, and pink, I plan to make into pillows. These are my inspiration pieces. I'll paint the wall as well. I've attached images of the room from different angles. I truly appreciate your help. Congrats on your upcoming family edition. Both of my children were born in August, so I feel for you with the summer heat at the end of your pregnancy." Well, you know, the good thing, Jennifer, is I was quite concerned. My first summer baby, like, how's it going to be? It has been really fine. In fact, as you can see, I'm in long sleeve shirt right now. My office does not have air conditioning because it's in the shaded woods, but it still gets, hot. I have long pants on and everything's fine. It's really been kind of chilly out here. When I was in Cape Cod, the weather was horrible and we were wearing, 2 shirts and a hoodie. if anything, I've been a little chilly this pregnancy. Hopefully today at the beach I'll have a different experience because as somebody who loves the heat, I don't know what's going on here, but I really had a lot of anxiety about, how it was going to be pregnant in the summer. Not bad this summer. So the key here, the takeaway for me at least, is, not to worry about things in advance because you'll deal with them. And in this case, I didn't even have to deal with it. So I don't know what I was so worried about. Anyway, let's get to your questions. So basically, it sounds like you're wondering about the layout. And, if you want to see pictures of Jennifer's room, just go to our YouTube channel. They'll all be posted there. So yes, it is a pretty tight room at 10 feet, 10 inches by 10 feet, 10 inches. And in terms of the closet, I hate it when they do that. When they put those two closets side by side, I had the same thing in my old house, and it goes all the way through, and it is so hard to use that space behind the slim piece of wall dividing the two doors. You may want to consider, in this case, instead of bifolds, you may want to consider like some kind of farm door or something. But if you do that sliding door, well, I do like a sliding door. I like it better than a bifold. Bifolds come off the track so easily. I see a ton of problems with them. So I prefer the sliding door side to side. If you did a barn door, you'd have to leave that wall next to the closet empty for it to go into unless, anyway, we won't get into that. So do sliding doors that open one side or the other. But I don't love a bifold. Just think about that. I do think in any room, you need to go vertical. The reason is because you want pieces around the room to undulate high and low and high and low. And if everything's at like this 3-foot height, whether it's the 6 cubby bookcase or the twin bed, then it starts to look really boring and plain and predictable. And also in a room like this, you're just not maximizing its potential. So I would definitely consider using the verticality. And I also would not be afraid to block the window. She does have a beautiful big window, and I can see you're partially blocking it with the bed, which is fine by me, but I also would not be afraid to partially block it with some furniture. Now, when I'm creating a layout for a room, as you know, it's not anything that I ever do on the podcast because I like to try every possible option. But I take the main piece of furniture in the room, which in this case would be that twin bed, and I would try every possible option. I'm not convinced that her bed is in the right placement. And once you do find the right placement for this bed, I think the rest of the pieces will make more sense and fall into place and show you where you can go vertical versus where you can go low. I know she doesn't want to make any changes, but the other thing you could consider in this space, let's see, how old was she? Did you reveal? 11. My daughter's almost 11 as well. One's going to be 11 and one's going to be 11 minutes old. What do we think about that? Anyway, so with 11, a lot of times they are resistant to change. She might be going into middle school. She might be facing a lot of just intrinsic change and may not want her room to feel different. But something that you may want to consider is a loft bed, where then you could use the verticality and have her bed up high and have a lot of functionality down low. That's another idea. And it could be something really cool that she would either love and get super excited by or immediately shut down. My daughter really wanted a bunk bed, clamoring for a bunk bed. I got her a low loft bed when she was young, and then we got her a real lofted bed when she was older. And turns out she didn't really like either of them. So now she's back in just a standard bed and she's happy as a little clam and hasn't ever mentioned a bunk bed since. But I have clients whose tweens and teens are obsessed with bunk beds. So it's something to think about. Now, I feel like you had another question. The one thing that's really bothering me here, which you did not ask about as I re-peruse this. Is that a word, re-peruse? The one thing that's really bothering me is this valance on top of the window. So you have just kind of this piece of fabric that's spanning the top of the window. And not only is it encroaching on a lot of the window space, it's eating up a ton of the natural light, and it's just not doing anything for the room. I would be more inclined to put panels on each side that could possibly make the window look wider. And when you hang it higher than the window, it'll also make the ceilings feel a little bit taller. So it'll kind of visually expand the room in some ways. So those are two big changes that I would make: losing the valance, adding the drapes, to add a lot of visual bang for your buck. And don't worry that it's off center, like life happens. The other thing that you can do to make a space feel less claustrophobic in terms of like just pushing all the furniture against the wall is to do something on a diagonal, whether it's a fun chair or, a corner bookcase. Something on a diagonal can help to break up all the just pushed furniture against walls if you can't truly float something in the middle of the room, as you probably shouldn't with this smaller room. So think about that, but first start with that layout evaluation. Ask your daughter if she'd be open to some kind of loft bed. See if it's within your budget. If she says no, that's fine, but do reevaluate the placement of this bed, and don't be hesitant to block a window, guys. It's okay, especially in small rooms where every inch matters. Well, guys, I hope you send in your questions. I hope you share your thoughts and feelings with me. Send them in. All you have to do is go to affordableinteriordesign.com/podcast. Once again, that's affordableinteriordesign.com/podcast. There you'll see a form to fill out, to share your question with me, share your pictures, and you'll want to do this all before mid-September, because mid-September, I'm going on my maternity leave. And I will not be reaching back into the mailbag until January. January, whether I continue to work or not, I will be re-recording. Don't you worry. And I'm hoping to bank quite a few podcasts so that you have delicious content to listen to and absorb while I am away. So have a wonderful rest of your August, and I'll catch you next week. Bye. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy, who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller, who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.